My name is Derrick Jackson. I am a social worker who became a police officer, and for the last 15 years, I've been the director at the Washtenaw County Sheriff's Office. So the first question, please describe for us how you have involved yourself in your local community to serve and benefit people of color, the underprivileged, and the disenfranchised in your district or county. And when I was thinking about this question, I was thinking I'm not even going to talk about anything I've been doing at the Sheriff's Office for the last 15 years. There's a lot of really good things in there, but I wanted to show you that this isn't just about me running for office. I've been doing this work for 25 plus years. And so I remember when I first moved into West Willow, a neighborhood in Ypsi Township, and I was driving down Tyler Road, and there was this beautiful big park right off of Tyler. And I would drive by and I would see nobody in it, no kids playing, nothing. And so as I got to know my neighbors and the kids in the neighborhood, I started to ask people like, hey, why does nobody use the park? And they would share stories from the early 90s and some of the gang stuff and drug dealing that was going on, how unsafe it was. And so parents didn't let their kids play there. So I created a program called Ballin' in the Willow. It's just a free 3-on-3 basketball program over the summer every week for kids to come out. And I remember that first week I was out there, just me and about 5 or 6 kids. And one of the little kids asked me, they said, hey, who's paying you to do this? And I said, nobody. This is just my neighborhood. And I want to do something good for the community. Next week, about 15 to 20 kids are there. Next week, about 30. And by the end of that summer, we had upwards of 125 kids playing in that park. And I'll never forget one day I'm coming home from work, not on a basketball day. And as I drive by the park, it's full with kids. Playing, having fun, doing what kids should be doing in the park. Not because someone asked me to. Not because 20 plus years later, I'd be standing in front of this camera asking for people to vote for me. Please describe your plans on how you will use the office of the sheriff to serve and benefit people of color, the underprivileged, and the disenfranchised in your county. I like to say that someone's past behavior is the best predictor of their future actions. And for the last 15 years, I have been at the sheriff's office as the architect who has deconstructed the system, put it back together in very different ways. So that now we have options and pathways beyond just arresting people, beyond just holding someone in jail. If you come to our jail, we have an entire process to make sure you leave better prepared for success than when you came. If you interact with an officer, they now have a tool belt full of options that are not about arresting someone. It's about getting people the help that they need. That's the work that I've been so fortunate to be able to lead here in Washtenaw County. So as sheriff, I will have the freedom to expand that work, to push that work and evolve it and take it to the next level. Imagine you on a hiring committee to help decide who is worthy to wear the badge and be a police officer in Washtenaw County. Imagine you sitting around the table helping us evaluate our policies or design our future policies. How about you helping to train the community helping to train the deputies? We already do some of this work, but imagine being able to expand it and you sitting around that table. Imagine you sitting around the table getting to decide how we use the public safety and mental health millage, how those millions of dollars get invested in your community. Under Sheriff Jackson, that's what we would create, a community advisory committee that helps us make these very difficult and important decisions. Number 3, with the racial climate that we're living in, especially since the death of George Floyd, what is your plan to challenge the inequities within our institutional systems? What is your plan to build commitment for racial equity? You know, I'll be honest, my mere presence as a social worker who became a police officer who would be sheriff, I think would send ripple effects and a message across this county, across the state, and really across the country. To have someone with the values and the work that we've put in to already transform and change the system, now leading the agency and have the ability and the authority to really take it to the next level, I think that would be a powerful statement. Step 2 is about action. I've already listed off some of the programs we've done, but I'm going to give you 2 other pieces of what we have done and how we'll evolve it and expand it for the future. Justice reinvestment is this idea that you take dollars within the system and you reinvest them in different ways. So when I started, we didn't invest a single dollar into diversion, deflection, reentry, or alternatives to incarceration. We now invest $4.7 million a year out of our budget for all of those things that are not about arresting people and holding them in jail, but are alternatives to that to get people the help that they need. Imagine getting pulled over for a traffic ticket. You don't have money to pay, so it turns into a warrant, and then you wind up getting arrested, and you spend some time in jail. And because you were poor, you had to sit in jail. We call it a poor tax. Do you know at the sheriff's office, we forgave $500,000 of people's old fines and fees so that thousands of people in Washington County could get the burden of those old fines and fees off of their back. And as sheriff, I will expand that work and do even more. And I'll give you one example. Do you know if you're a survivor of domestic violence and you come to file for a personal protection order or a PPO, that you have to pay a fee for someone to take that paper to serve it to the person who was abusing you in order for that paper and that PPO to be officially binding? I think that's ridiculous. So we at the sheriff's office would create a fund, a PPO fund, so that anyone who can't afford it, who's a survivor of domestic violence, when they come in, that we will actually cover the fees for that PPO. That's just one small example of how you can change the system and reinvest dollars in community-based solutions, and the way under Sheriff Jackson of how we would operate at the Washington County Sheriff's Office.